everyone, Melanie Minshinger here, illustrator for Gina K Designs. Today I'm back with another project for you with Message in a Bottle. This is currently, as of today, sold out at the Gina K store, but it is at Simon Says stamp. So if you would like to purchase this or the bundle, I am including a link to it down below. Otherwise, get on our wait list at Gina K Designs and you will get a notification as soon as it's back in stock. This is a project that I showed at our release party last month. It was very popular. It's a great masculine design, or just anybody who loves old vintage things. And I just love how everything looks on craft cardstock. This is one of my staples, but Gina's got some other beautiful neutrals that will work for this design as well, like Sandy Beach, Soft Stone. So if you don't have craft cardstock and you want to try this right away, then get creative with which ones that you use. I'm going to go through and talk about this, but I love having a darker cardstock for this design because it allows you to stamp or emboss the bottle in white, and that creates the illusion of glass that you are seeing through. So that's what we're doing here today. Like I said, two ways to achieve this. You can either use a pigment ink. Right now, the pigment ink at Gina K, it is sold out. I looked just this morning if you want to get on the wait list for that. So this one is done in the craft, and it is flat, smooth when you run your fingers over it. So because it's sold out today, and just because maybe some of you are new to embossing or haven't gotten on the embossing train yet, it's really fun. It's very easy. So I think I'm going to emboss it, and then that way you can see the difference of the textured shiny embossing versus the white stamp look. So for an embossed look, I'm just going to use some of the Gina K Designs watermarking ink. This is a clear ink that you use for either just a tone-on-tone watermark or to make your design sticky so you can emboss them. And then this is some of her fine detail white embossing powder. You will also need a heat gun, but again, this is only if you emboss it, not if you use that pigment ink. The cardstock that I'm going to be using today, I have got some of her heavy base weight white pure luxury cardstock. This is an A2 size card. It is 4 1/4 inches by 11, scored at 5.5 with my Scor-Buddy right here. So I have already pre-scored and folded that. I found my cutting mat after cleaning my office yesterday, so I was able to die cut my layers for this. I decided I really like when I'm able to show something just a little bit different on a design, but it's still essentially the same card. So you can decide which one you like better and what a small change would make when you are going to recreate it, and you can pick the one that you like better. So I use those master layout dies that I mentioned yesterday. So these are going to give you this really fine and so you could even layer it on that. Ooh, that looks really sharp. I actually really like that a lot too. But see, this thin black 1/16 of an edge matte on that really is going to make those fine lines in this ship pop, as well as this script greeting. We're going to be using, so this is the black Onyx and the craft cardstock, and I'll continue talking about why I like craft when I'm stamping on it. We're also going to be using some of her jet black amalgam ink for doing our stamping of the ship and the greeting. I've got a few different markers that I'm going to use to color in this ship, and so the specific brand that you use really doesn't matter. Just keep in mind, if you were making a single layer card and you were coloring with alcohol markers on the craft ink, this would go through the craft. It does not go through the heavy base weight white, so that is why I love creating single layer cards with Gina's white cardstock, but that's just a heads up that alcohol markers do bleed through. Now, I layered this on here, so I didn't have to worry about that, but had I flipped this over, you would have seen this shadow. So today we're just using 3 markers for this whole card. So I would like for you to have some kind of golden or tan brown, a darker brown, and then some kind of gray. This is kind of a brownish gray. These are my Spectrum Noir markers. I use them a lot. Gina used to carry them. She doesn't have them now, but again, any markers that you have will do. Copic, whatever. So this is EB2 and EB6 if you happen to have the Spectrum Noir. And then I've also got the BG5, which is great for the shadow. Now, when you're using some of these grays or browns on a brown or grayish cardstock, I recommend if you have a little scrap and you could use even that little bitty piece that you had from your die cut to just test these out, because sometimes something that's a very similar color, it really absorbs this craft cardstock, the ink, and I find a lot of times if I don't pick one dark enough, it just kind of fades in and it's not popping as much as I want it to. So if you were to test it on, let's say, a white piece of paper, which I was doing just to make sure I got the colors that I wanted, it's not going to look quite the same as it will on the actual cardstock. So that's a little tip there. And then of course the message in a bottle set. Not going to be using the dies, but just to show you what those look like, and I store those inside the bag. You want to make sure that, let's get to our stamping, but you want to make sure if you're using a craft pad like this or the clear embossing ink, to make sure that your stamp is clean. So I did clean this before I started, and that's because you do not want to, whoop, wrong one. That's because you do not want to get this muddied up with dark ink if you had stamped this in black before. Same thing with your craft pad. And you will also, because this is like paint in a pad, you'll need to clean it off well after you're done doing the stamping. Oh, I forgot to mention, I'm going to be using a MISTI for all of my stamping today, and I really like it for these particular images because I want to make sure that I get all of that bottle on there, and a lot of times the white ink, you have to stamp it several times for it to be as bright as you want it. Same for very fine images like the boat or this very fine script greeting. I wouldn't want to accidentally not get my whole image, so the MISTI is just going to allow me to stamp it a couple times in exactly the same spot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the bottle. Get some of these things out of the way here. And I'm going to just position this right here. And I didn't want to obsess about it when I was making it, but I did have my greeting a little bit off center, which is fine. But I think that I would have preferred if it was either centered exactly or a little bit offset more to the right. That's just how my eye likes it. But again, stamping it right there, it wasn't enough to redo it after I had done all this coloring. So you might want to just go ahead and, you know, make sure where you want to have everything before you do that. Okay, so that's where I want to have my bottle. I'm going to put this little magnet down here so that doesn't pop up. This is a big stamp, so you might want to pull it away just a little bit to make sure that there's no air trapped under there that would end up getting some of the ink on the middle when you're doing your stamping. So let's go ahead. Oh, and then, okay, yeah, I do have the ink, detail ink right here. Okay, so, and these look the same on top, very similar, so I'm going to keep grabbing the wrong one probably. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to just press all over and make sure that we have that whole thing stamped. And like I said, this is a watermarking ink, so it probably would look really nice even just as a watermark, and I'll be able to see all the detail here. It's just going to be a little bit darker brown than my craft. So that picked up all that detail. You can even see all the stippling on the cork. Love it. Okay, so the next thing that I want to do, oh, and I have a little embossing buddy, and I forgot to mention that, but if you have a lot of static, I think we'll be okay today, but I struggle with it more often when it's very cold and dry, that I get static on my cardstock. So rubbing that before you do your stamping will keep you from having many stray little pieces on your cardstock when you're done embossing. Okay, so I have just a piece of scratch paper here that I am going to use to catch my powder. And if you like to use, you know, a little container, like a little Tupperware container or something, that's really useful also. Okay, tip up on the bottom, and then here at the top. Okay, and then I'm just going to wipe away that excess powder there. Oh, I forgot one thing that I wanted to mention that I like to use when I am stamping something that's glass, or should look like glass, onto a dark cardstock, is I like to have a white gel pen. So this is a different brand than the one that Gina is carrying. This is from Arteza, but we've got the Signo Uniball gel pen, and I have used both. I have both. They're great. So this is just a great thing to have. It's great for touching up things on white, or to add little shine elements, little highlights on your bottle at the end if you want to just add a little bit more. But I've got a few little ones on here built into the image. Okay, so it's going to be loud for a second, but I'm just going to turn on my heat gun, and we're just going to keep it close, not too close. So see how that just starts to pop out? Ooh, it looks so bright and shiny. I love that for glass. I'm glad I embossed this time, just to show you a different look. Okay, and I did get just a little bit of the powder in the middle, but I'm not mad at that because it's almost like a little highlight on the bottle there, and that's going to get covered up by our ship. Okay, so you don't want to touch it right away because it does take just a second to cool. Sometimes you can leave like an impression from your finger if you touch it, but just takes just a few seconds for that to wear off. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this back on, and I'm going to grab my greeting and my bottle, or my ship, excuse me. So these are both going to get stamped in black, and I'll put this just right here. Oh, I'm going to need my glue too. I was thinking about that when that was popping up, how I need to make sure that's adhered to my mat. Okay, and then here is that greeting. Put that right there. So you see how this ship just fits perfectly into the bottle. All right, so now I'm going to ink this up with the black. Tap, tap, tap. And I re-inked my pad yesterday. If you watched my other video, yesterday I did one for my Serene Sky stamp set, which is back in stock, but I had a lot of requests about the bottle, message in a bottle set, and I hadn't done it yet. So just wanted to go ahead and get that done. All right, so I'm going to just rub all over. If you have a Chucky tool or some kind of tool that's going to make sure that you are just getting even pressure all over that. It's just a little bit easier to hold something and do this than press with your fingers. I think I got it today though. Okay, so I'm going to do it. I mean, that looks good, but I'm going to do it just one more time, and it's just going to be a little bit sharper. So just want a little bit more detail in that boat. Okay. And having that white gel pen also, the other thing that I use that for that's going to really make this ship realistic looking is we're going to color those sails, and it's just going to look so sharp on this craft. You don't really see that when you're stamping it on white. So I'm going to go ahead and take this out and just do my coloring here. Okay, so here we've got our yellow, brown, and gray. So what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to add a little bit of the lighter brown to the top side. That light would be coming down, and then just a little bit in that middle section of that cork. Okay, now what I want to do, and you can leave this uncolored too, you know, and that would still look good, but this is just gonna give it more realism. Okay, now I'm gonna put some of the brown there, the darker, just a little bit, and then you can go in and kind of blend those together. And it's just going to make that cork look really dimensional. And then all these shading and shadows that you add, it really creates as if there is a light source coming down on this bottle, and this is a three-dimensional object. So now I'm going to do a very simple shadow with my brownish gray, and at first it might look like, oh, that's really dark, but trust me, it's just going to look so much better. So what I did, I just traced the underside of this bottle. And then I'm not going straight up to the top, because think about how this is touching the table or the sand. If this is on the shore, that's kind of a cool thing to think about. This just got washed up here. So, but this is just above, a few inches above. And so I'm just going up to, okay, that. And then I'm going to put just a little bit in here, because again, it's resting there on the edge. See how much that adds. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my darker brown, and oh, I might have put, I think I put, this is not TN4. Let's see. I put the wrong cap on this the last time, so I'm pretty sure this is EB6. That's confusing, sorry. So I gotta find my TN4 now. I put the wrong cap on there, I'm pretty sure. Okay, anyway, whatever. This is, I'm sure it's EB6. Okay, so what we're gonna, whatever your brown is. So we're just gonna go in, and I'm going to color just the bottom of that boat. Then I'm going to color the mast. So you're just doing just a skinny stripe down, just following that line. All right, now I'm going to go in and I'm going to just do, what are those called? I don't know if those are called mast to cross beams. I don't know. I don't know ships very well. I like them, but I don't know all the nautical terms. Okay, now I'm going to take my lighter brown, and I'm going to do the interior of the boat, just because that would have the light shining down on it again, like the top of that cork. And then I'm going to take my white pen, and I'm just going to fill in these little sails. Okay, and see how that's popping out? This is so easy to color. You're just, it's like little tiny squares that you're filling in. And you can go around. I've got a few little ropes drawn in there that are kind of crossing over. So if you want to go in between, you can, or you can just cover it up. Nobody will know, because it could be behind. But I'm just going around it. Okay. And one more. And then all we have to do is, if we want to add a little bit more shine to our glass, the places that you would do that, again, you think about how this would be coming from the top. And so if you wanted to add another little highlight, it would be hitting along here. And so the reason that I didn't add a lot, I have a little bit that's really more showing the width of this glass bottle here, but I didn't really want to necessarily put in a lot of highlights, because again, I want you to be able to determine if you want the bottle to be going this way, if you want the bottle to be facing up and down, and where you have your light source coming in. But again, it's not necessary to add those extra little bits. It's just if you want to, just make it more your own. All right, so let's go ahead and take our adhesive, and we will just assemble these layers, and then the card is done. So I'm going to just put my, so if you have a lot of warping of your cardstock, usually that kind of settles down a few minutes after it has dried. But you can also flip it over and hit the back side of it with some of the heat, and then that will kind of help it. So this kind of squeezed open on me yesterday. I need to find that little pin. It got all over the back of my card. A little bit of, find a little pin here real quick. Let's see. There we go. I think that did it. Oh, come on. Here we go. Here we go. So I'm going to take just, and she has a little fine tip, little pen dispenser thing. So I'm just using the top of a thumbtack to kind of open up where it dried up there. There we go. So just run a little thin bead. I'm doing it very close to the edge again, just so that it will not pop up from my embossing. But it doesn't take a lot. So you can see how, when I'm gluing this, how my alcohol marker came through there, that dark brown. All right, so let's go ahead. So I like to do this layer first. And I like to put my white underneath it so I can see and make sure I'm really getting that lined up. Kind of helps me make sure that it is centered. It's a little bit harder to see if you're just holding it up. You can't see anything light behind it. Okay, so I've got that centered now. And if you wanted to pop this up on some foam squares to make it a little bit more dimensional, you could do that. It always just kind of makes it seem a little bit more special. But sometimes I don't like to do that because a lot of times it kind of hides more of the cardstock, and might be easier for your envelope or for shipping to have it be flat. Again, I was going to say the other things I like about the craft. I just love that you can see some little natural fibers, and it just reminds me of maps and definitely nature. I mean, this looks like a sandy beach. Sandy beach, by the way, is another cardstock that I would love to use. And then your card is done. So simple. So anyway, here are the two. And again, yeah, that I would say if you have got the embossing powder, the white, to go ahead and go for that. Clear, that would also look really cool too. But yeah, I just love how that white looks. And it's so much more shiny, and it just really shows up a lot more than the white pigment ink. But anyway, they both have a spot in my craft room for sure. Thanks so much for watching this video today, and for your likes, your comments, and shares. If you want to let me know in the comments which stamp set you want to see next, or if there's another card in my collection with this particular message in a bottle. I have some that I want to do showing some of the other coordinating sets that I have in my collection that work with message in a bottle, like Gifts from the Sea and Window on the Water. Again, thank you so much for watching today. God bless.